Thanks, Steph. Welcome to our City Council work session meeting. It is 5:30 on the 17th of December. And if I don't say another word about it, Merry Christmas next week to everyone. The roll call. We could call the roll. All are here with the exception of Councilman Brian Del Rosario. He has another commitment that he needed to be to tonight. All else are in attendance. Would someone like to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I'll do that, Mayor. Please repeat the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Norm. I would also like to ask if someone would offer an invocation or a inspirational thought. Okay.
Dear Father in heaven, we're grateful for this beautiful day and for the wonderful December. We are grateful for this wonderful city of Santaquin and the resources we have to take care of the residents. We ask a blessing to be upon Mayor and City Council as they discuss items that benefit the city. And we ask also a blessing that we can receive future moisture to help provide water for us next summer. These things we humbly say in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Thank you. Discussion items. We want to talk about the skate park design concepts.
Yeah, so Mayor and Council, as you recall earlier this year, we gave a contract to the skate park company, and they did the bike skills park for us first, and we've been kind of focused on that, and just wanted to circle back around now that the bike park is done and installed and people are using it, and I think we've had a pretty good experience with that. We wanted to come back around and just bring you kind of a report on the skate park and some of the recommendations that were given as far as the consultant that we hired. So, John, do you want to take it away and I'll supplement, or I can take it away and you can supplement and correct me when I'm wrong?
You betcha. So American Ramp Company, if you recall, they're the company that we worked with, and they did a design for both. The first thing maybe we could look at is the survey.
Okay.
They had, I believe, 147-ish around there people that took the survey. And, yeah, you can just kind of glance through that.
You want to go to that one, or?
Well, more so... The email I sent you probably has more of a summary.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
The actual survey, there we go, right there, perfect. 176 total responses from 84655 zip code. So they thought that was a really good turnout as far as people responding. 15% of the survey respondents, these are some things that they picked out and emailed me and I'm forwarding on. Were people who thought that they would prefer to skate or ride to a park if there was access to do that. Although most people said they had a vehicle to get to a future park. 74% of respondents, I think this is really important, were either beginner or intermediate level. So the focus of what they're going to provide in the design is really more for entry level people and not your advanced adults that want the big bowls and so forth. So those were just a couple key highlights of the surveys. And if you want to see the results in more detail, Norm could forward those out. The design, the main design was actually $400,000. And let's go ahead and click on that. That's a picture as well, the skate design 1.
Yeah, I've got it here.
Okay.
That's the one you're looking for?
Yep. So as you can see, it's purposefully designed more for beginners and intermediate. It doesn't have big bowls and things that would really draw attention from people outside the area to come to, unless they're coming from, say, south of Nephi, where there's no skate elements at all, or Goshen, etc. So that was an example. They did say from their survey, they said another element that you could consider, which is survey design picture number 2.
Let me pull that over. It's in a different format, sir.
Okay.
That's the one with the half pipe, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's basically adding the half pipe. The thing that I don't like about it is there's not a direct, it's not connected to the other park. I have only shown this to one person. It was actually somebody that just moved to town from California a couple weeks ago and said, "Are you doing something like this?" And I said, "Well, just come in here and I just said, "What do you think of this design?" And they had all kinds of ideas, but they basically said, "This is really geared for youth, don't you?" And I said, "Exactly." That would be the goal. But they didn't like the half pipe either. I thought that was interesting from someone that skates a lot. They're like, it's disconnected and it's you're already getting all those same elements over here. And so that would be another 80,000 plus with concrete in that element. So from what was given us, the $400,000 version seems to be sufficient. However, one recommendation, if down the road mayor and city council decides to move forward with a skate park, is I would then flush those ideas out with the public where they haven't seen all the design. Basically, you have this is what you can do for $400,000, and hey, we could tweak a couple things, but you could still keep a price area by still giving the public some say on some of the different elements. So that's the focus we've talked about. Focus on youth. Just funding opportunities. A skate park is high on the list for state of Utah outdoor recreation. There's certain things that they love to fund: bike skills park, trails, skate park. Those type of things are really considered outdoor recreation, and the state has about $16 million each year that they fund. They try to hit small cities, big cities, all the different counties, and we've been successful in getting 50% matches for both the trail and bike skills park. So that's up to $250,000. That grant process starts in January and goes through March. So if mayor and council were to go forward, you could definitely apply after budget retreat coming up in February. Or you could do that in a future year. The other thing was mentioned is location.
Wait a minute, can I ask you that?
Yes.
The application time frame has to be done before February, right?
No, March. It ends in March, right?
It's January through March, and then you have about 26 months or so to build it. We usually are done building ours really quickly, but then you've got a couple years to actually. Yeah. Okay. So if someone didn't have funding lined up, they could reserve things, and then you could actually extend it a little bit. I apologize. I've been looking sideways. Any questions up to this point, or discussion, or maybe I'm just sharing some thoughts, and then you'll have discussion after that. Okay. If you have any questions, just leading up to, let me know.
So, John, I've got the location recommendations on your email open here. I can open that up, and we can. That's the next thing on your item. Let's talk about the potential locations that they evaluated by American Ramp Company, right?
Yes, and before we jump into there, just some key things that in general people look at in skate park locations is, first and foremost, usually somewhere that's close to restrooms. They tend to have youth hang out there for periods of time, and having a place to go with a drinking fountain or restroom seems to be high on that priority list. The second one would be a place where there's lots of eyes. There's a lot of people nearby or going by, not tucked. I had one in a city that was tucked behind a freeway exit, and it's kind of like a spot where there was nothing else, and they just that wasn't a good idea. So something that's visible. And then other things were just optional, whether you put fences based on, sometimes for bad weather, you go ahead and just put a lock on it and say it's closed, for bad weather, or different things of that nature. So let's jump into recommendations. So these are actually coming from the consultant. We took them, if you recall, we talked about 5 different locations. We took them to Centennial Park, to Orchard Cove on the north of town. We talked about Squash Head. Did we drive there?
I think it's actually on here.
It's on there too. Okay. Harvest View Sports Park, and then I think the fifth one was it East Park?
I think
And maybe
it was.
they didn't put it on.
They just gave us 4 recommendations.
Yeah, and so based on the recommendations, we can kind of go through those. Centennial Park. One of the things they really liked about Centennial Park was just that it was in the core of town, easy to access. They thought that there was a lot of traffic flow as far as both city employees going by as well as people coming to and from the school. Just lots of cars, lots of eyes on the spot, as well as it being a park that was very active with lots of amenities, whether it be playground or pavilion, restrooms on site, that type of thing.
What was the dimension of that option 1, width and length?
I don't know that we have a dimension on that. I don't know that they've given us any dimension on that.
It's just laid out like that.
Yeah, and that's just an example. They didn't have a location, so they were just trying to put something that flowed together. If someone had a different size limitations, they could adjust the skate park accordingly. We were basically saying, hey, if you had an open spot, where we were looking at Centennial were 2 different locations. We looked at one kind of where the concerts in the park are over on the south west side, northwest, excuse me. And then the other option was maybe putting it where the playground is, and then moving the playground over to the northwest side, where the playground's older and potentially could be upgraded. Is just flip it. You've already got a little square there. You could move them. So going back to the recommendations, let's see.
Then Orchard Cove Park was the second one.
Second one, they made note that it's 100% surrounded by neighborhood homes. Let's see. They liked that there was bathroom, playground, pavilion. That one they liked that there was space, but it was in a neighborhood where, again, you might have homes, but there's less eyes, less people going around that. Flat, tennis courts close by, that type of thing. Number 3 was Harvest View Sports Complex. I think the thing that they didn't like as much about it was that it's so far away. In the current master plan, it kind of shows the potential of a skate park being clear in the very back at a future phase. So how would people park and how would they get there and that type of thing. A note to that, we've been kind of looking at that internally. Just at as a master plan, there is a potential if mayor and city council decided this site that you could put it more behind the pickleball courts, and that way you'd be closer. You've got cameras there and restrooms and soccer users and playground users and pickleball people and so forth, as well as a parks employee that's there most weekdays during the day.
So, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but the northwest corner of Harvest View currently shows a pump track there, not a not a skate park. So it's but we kind of feel like that might have already been taken care of by the now bike skills park that we have at Prospector View, right? So there could be a potential change at Harvest View for something like this. So
that's correct. I was thinking just along the lines of another Will Sport, but yes. Now that you have a bike skills park, that would be something that we could look at is, do we need a pump track at that location? Knowing that that's many, many years out in developing to the north, that is, again, one option is to kind of shift things over and put something a little closer on the south side. So, and then the last one, the reason we recommended Squash Head is, one, it's in the core of town, and it's a deep park that's got access. There's not a lot of parking. There would have to be a restroom, most likely placed, dropped on site, so that that was taken care of. But there is a lot of park space that's unused at that park on Main Street, and so that was their last recommendation, but it was something that we'd recommended.
So going along at the end here, John, if that's okay, let me jump in. I should have mentioned up front, there's no decisions being made here tonight. This is just informational. We're bringing it back to the council to kind of close the loop, as it were, on the design process that we've gone through with American Ramp Company, and to let you know this is what they've come up with. These are their suggestions and recommendations. At this point, we don't have any funding, and we have not identified a location. Those are the two, probably at this point, items that need to be addressed. So at the recommendation of the council / mayor. This could come as one of the items that we score in our rankings at the budget planning process that we have in February that would then allow us to potentially go after a grant for this or for other things. If this doesn't kind of make the list on the top of the list, we could go from there. And that's kind of the situation that we're at right now. There is no current funding plan for this. The funding that has been used, if I remember right, was RAP tax funding to do this preliminary design. Is that correct? It's either RAP tax or impact fees.
Impact fees.
It could have been impact fees. So anyway, that's been done, and that's the state that we're at right now. Again, tonight, we're just bringing it for your information and the public's information to say, hey, here's where the consultants have landed, and here's the recommendations that they made, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have regarding this for the council members that are in attendance.
When we did our budget retreat last year, we had this on the ranking. Did it score like really low? Like,
if I remember correctly, it did. I think that I'd have to go back and look at those budget rankings again. And so in this situation, it's not necessarily that we're going to bring this back every year necessarily. It's just because we've gone through this process and we're kind of, again, done with the bike skills park, and these are the two efforts that American Ramp Company put together, then we'll go with it. And just, again, it's the mayor's direction of where we go with this and what he wants to present and what the recommendations or asks are from the council to bring for that scoring process. But I believe you are correct. It ranked fairly low last year.
Well, it sounded to me like there were a few of the council that were interested in pushing through with this to see how it would end up. So I don't think we need to take it off of the budget process where we would do the ranking. I think it'd be very good to bring it up there. We've invested in it. We certainly wanted to talk about it. And there may be a couple of other things that we want to bring up with it. One thing's for sure, if we're deciding to look at that for this year's budget, and we were planning on up to $250,000 for matching funds to come from the state, we're not going to meet until the last Friday and Saturday in February. I don't know that we'd be able to put together the package unless you had that done in advance, and it may just be not something that scores high enough again. So is this something that we're going to look at and make a decision and maybe push it another year before we get there?
That's up to the council as we go through the budget planning process. Everything that we do, as we've talked about, typically has to do with policy and budget. If there's budget for it and there's a desire, the way that we do it is that we rank things, right? We say, okay, here's the 6 items, or I'm not saying it's only going to be 6, but in theory, here's the 6 or 7 or 10 items that would come before the council. And the way that it works is that we rank those, and whatever we feel like that we're going to have budget money for impact fees, that's as far as we go.
Yeah, well, the other thing that we need to make very clear is the council has a lot of steering capability and influence with the voting process as we move forward with that budget and the budget ranking. However, I honestly think if we wait that long, that it's not really an item that'll get on there, because I'm not sure we can expect to write that grant in a week or two. So
the other thing that we can do, and we have done it in the past, we did it with the bike skills park, is that we budget for it, but it's contingent upon getting the grant. If the grant doesn't go through, then we don't build it.
Yeah.
Right. That's kind of the way that we've done it in the past. And so again, we're happy to look at it. We're happy to take your direction. We're happy to take comments or questions or concerns and do what the mayor directs us to do.
I think this is something that we'll maybe want to talk about in a future work session, so that the 5 council would be sitting here and could help with that steering and say, yeah, let's throw it in, or, are we crazy at this point? We have invested a little. It hasn't really come out of our pockets, but this is where we can make that decision. We can look at it. And, I think it's something that has to be decided even as we get closer to that budget. Do we want to keep going down this path? Yep. There's some really cool things with it. I think we're trying to take care of the youth around here, and they don't all do the same things. Some even do rodeo, so who knows where we go next time. But I like the way this is, but I also think we need to prioritize our own thoughts by maybe talking about this a little bit further as we proceed. You guys agree? At least it gives us some time now. You could maybe even talk to some people around and come back. And for Brian, I hope he'll be able to listen to what we've talked about tonight. Yeah. But, his input would be important for this, for the whole council. So.
And he did send an email to the mayor and I, and basically, Mayor, if you want to summarize that or read it or do whatever you want to do that way.
I'll just say it shortly. This is something that Brian felt was a good program, and he was in favor of moving forward with it. So that puts one of the 5 council on that target. But he wanted you guys to know that's how he felt about it. And I just want to make sure you're all aware of that. And then I just think we need to bring it up again. Maybe in a work session in January, take 10 minutes and just discuss it. How do you feel? How is it looking? Do we want to make sure this gets on our list so that we discuss it at the end of February? And then we've kind of got a path forward. Does that sound all right?
Your direction, Mayor and
Does that
Council.
sound good to you, John?
Yep.
Everybody else?
Yeah.
Don't vote on it now. We're not asking for a vote. Yeah.
Just based on previous conversations that we've had, I don't think this is an if thing. I think it's a where thing. I know there's some obvious, very differences of opinion on where it should be located. And that's going to be the chore working through rather than the funding.
Yeah, I drive to Harriman now more often than I ever did. And we get off on 2100 North and go across Lehigh and over to the Redwood Road to catch it. And Lehigh has put one right on that road. And I mean, right on the side of that road. So it's more of an industrial area. There are a few homes and things that are around there. There's some high density around there, of course, but it's not necessarily one of those places where you ride a skateboard across that 2100 North and head for the park, So, there's some things to take into consideration here. I just would like to discuss it a couple more times. Sound good? Sound good?
Your direction,
Let's
Mayor.
do that. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Upcoming agenda. You want to go over? I thought
Sure.
we were
Mayor,
going to do
Council.
the police tonight, but
So items coming up on the main meeting, the regular meeting. We'll have minutes from the previous meeting that we had on the meetings that we had on the 19th of November. We've not had a meeting since then because of the Christmas party that then got moved, but that's okay. And then some small amount of bills that we'll have on there. We have Business Spotlight. The mayor will read a statement and what's in the newsletter about Trailer Parts Wholesale, our new company, our newest and only company that's operating now in the industrial park, which is fantastic, and they're open and hopefully doing well. We will have 2 appointments, one for the RAP Tax Committee for Courtney Peterson, and also on the library board for Kathy Romero. Any public input? We'll talk about building permits and licenses. The first resolution that we have is an improvement of amendment of Utah County Major Crimes Task Force agreement. This is an amendment to an agreement that was signed back in 2020, originally actually in 2016 or 2017, then amended or updated in 2020. Essentially, and Brett, you can correct me if I'm wrong, this essentially covers an item of concern that obviously the task force has. If somebody gets sued or somebody is forced to, or feels like they're forced to make some type of a what do you call it, settlement of a lawsuit or something like that, that's an individual. So if one of our officers is participating in the task force, then they get sued individually. That there's certain processes that we have to go through, or they have to go through, in order to make sure that everybody in the task force is aware of it, and not make any settlements or any settlement offers without the task force knowing about it, and basically having some say in that. So is that
Yes, it is, but it's important to note it doesn't take away the authority of the city.
right?
Simply the notice requirements.
It's just noticing
Process.
requirements more than anything.
Yes.
Resolution number 02 is authorizing an interlocal agreement with Utah County in an effort to aid the homeless. That one has come in. We've talked about that. I sent you some information about that previously. This is an ask from the county. The county has set aside $200,000 for warming centers and other help for the homeless or the unsheltered, as they've indicated. And this is an ask from the each community to participate at $100 per 1,000 individuals or per population. So for us, that would be $1,900 a year. That doesn't go up, but it would be an annual contract until such time as either we or they terminate it. I can tell you just from the state level that the state is really pushing to have services and housing and warming centers and other things for the unsheltered in every part of the state. And I think it's been looked at before that this is really a Salt Lake problem or an Ogden problem. Turns out St. George probably has the biggest problem in the state, if you can imagine, but that kind of makes sense with the warm weather, right? That would be a potential issue for them. So anyway, this would be a $1,900 ask per year. And at least in talking to the mayor and some of the council members, we felt like that this was a reasonable request. That's something that we can help with in the budget to be able to help the county out with that. If it comes to fruition, it would be another, they would end up with probably around $70,000 from individual communities total for going from their $200 that they've already set aside to $270,000 to aid in this effort. Happy to answer any questions that you have about that.
Where are they going to put them?
I don't know all of the details. The most of it, from what I understand, is going to be in Provo and up that way. One of the things that as you can imagine, when you have homeless and you have the needs, we don't have the resources, counseling and medical and food. I mean, we don't even have a food pantry here. There's one in Payson, but most of it, I believe, is going to be centered around the Provo area for Utah County. But I can't swear to that. I don't know exactly what all the details are. I'm happy to get more details if you want it, but that's my understanding at this point in time. That $200,000 or even $270,000, it's not a shelter. It's just a place where they can go and have a warm, get warm, have a meal, those types of things. It really isn't a housing situation yet, but I anticipate the state's going to continue to mandate this. In fact, the state last year or 2 years ago mandated that we have what's called a code blue. If we get below a certain temperature, then they have to open these warming centers and provide a place for people to go and get warm and just have a little bit of protection. It's not a shelter by any means at those kind of numbers. That would be millions of dollars at this point in time.
I may be mistaken, but there is a place where they can check in.
There are.
Get a shower.
There are, and
they're
this
asking us to
this-
go run it.
Yeah, this may be helping that situation, but it's not necessarily funding it as a whole. This is overall in kind of the warming situation and having some humanitarian support for the unsheltered in Utah
Just
County.
curious if they were
Used to be
requiring us to
hotel
spend
rooms.
that money in our community.
They're not. No, this is the county heading it up, and the county will use their resources as well as our resources to do all that they can to help the homeless in that realm. The next item is a proposed amendment to a master development agreement, the MDA for Santaquin Research and Tech Center. This is the one that we've been working on. And if you remember back a couple of months ago, we did a code amendment for the commercial light manufacturing zone that allowed for a data center, island power, and solar mass or large scale solar. This is just implementing that in the development agreement. I should note that the development agreement that you've seen has all the red lines in it. There's a couple of things in there that we needed to update as I started accepting all the changes. There's two things that I want to mention to you really quick, and one is the right here, the last page. I think we need to add or permitted on this Exhibit F. So this data table has been added or changed in this document. And because we are now having permitted and not just non-permitted or prohibited uses, it's very simply to just say or permitted. And these two bottom things are in line with our code. This is actually not an amendment to code. This is just recognizing that they have the right to do this here because we've already changed that by ordinance. The other item is in Exhibit E at the very first page. The document that is in the packet had some things that were messed up and only showed. Oh, great! Now it's not even showing it now. Let me pull up a different one. Sorry about that. I will fix that really quick. Anyway, it was only showing one of the two views that were available in the original agreement, and so with that, we would just have the front and the side view. I'm going to pull that up really quick. Sorry, I apologize. I thought I had that up and I didn't, but I will pull it up really quick. So if I just pull up the document itself, the document that's in the packet does not show both of these views. I'm just inserting those back into the packet that we would have the mayor sign tonight that would show both of these views. In fact, if I go to this one right here and I go down a couple of dozen pages, you'll see that the document was messed up just from a formatting standpoint and did not include those two views. But we're just saying we're going to put those back in. So you can see that the front elevation view and the side elevation view are kind of messed up in that document. We're just wanting to get it back to this view right here. So it's really pretty minor, but I wanted to point those out to you that's what we would have the mayor execute tonight, is that restoring these two views as it were as Exhibit F, and then putting the words or permitted on that last table. So not a huge deal, but just wanted to bring it to your attention. Then the item number 10 would be approval of a public assistance articles of agreement for disaster relief funding. This is something that Chris Lindquist, along with John Lindell and Jason Calloway, have worked with FEMA. The local FEMA folks have provided us an opportunity to potentially gain some disaster relief funding from the flooding 2 years ago. Now, this has to be used in the items that are already identified. It has to be all within publicly owned property, those types of things. So everything from fixing roads from the flooding to where we had to reback the side of the asphalt, where we have to go clean out storm drains, where we have to build the channel over by the lagoons to handle more water and riprap that, all of those types of things. It's about $150,000 that we could potentially get. That's not a guarantee. But this funding, this agreement allows us to be able to accept that funding and use it for the designated purposes. Again, the disaster relief funding is only for public infrastructure. It's not for private property or anything of that nature.
So is this stuff we've already paid for to fix? We're getting
Essentially, it's
reimbursed,
two things.
basically?
It's stuff that we have already paid for, yes, but also things that we can do to help mitigate flooding in the future. So there are some future projects in there, but it also is some relief for funds that, yes, we've already spent.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep. Item number 11, as we go into the Community Development Renewal Agency, is an amendment to the Hive Homes Real Property Purchase Agreement. Just basically, this adds two things. It allows for the 11 feet of right-of-way use to do for their landscaping, and it allows for, it prohibits storage containers, storage and buildings, any type of building out there with storage containers, which is more consistent with the subsequent agreements that we've agreed with, that we've executed. And then the last thing is the resolution 02 is the real property purchase agreement assignment. We've already done one assignment with Greenhall where they wanted to go from one company to another company. This is very similar where Blaze Masters wants to do it in their private names for tax purposes. Whatever those tax purposes are, it's still the same people. It's still the same president of the company is who it will be going to. And so it's not any different other than it's just a difference in name of the entity that we would close with and that would own the property. And again, this is my understanding is it's strictly for tax purposes and for their tax needs. It doesn't change any costs. It doesn't change anything other than just it's an assignment, and we're acquiescing, or we're what's the word, Brett? We're accepting the assignment
Yeah, that's what we did with Green Hall.
with Green Hall. Yeah, same thing. It just there's no change. In fact, he's ready to close now. He was here last week, ready to close, but he wanted to close in a different name that we couldn't close in because of the potential change of the owner. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have on anything else, gentlemen.
Consent's required, but there isn't any specific form for it, so.
That's
this is
correct.
just fine.
Well, we were ready to sign it and realized that they were wanting to change that. You guys have already approved it under Blaze Master, so it's moving it under Brett's name so that we can get this done.
Okay. Happy to answer any questions that you have on those items, sir.
On the interlocal with the county, I had a question about the amount, but you answered that. On the agreement with the Research and Tech Center,
Uh-huh.
I'm wondering what they're meaning in the wording of upsizing that's in that contract. I'm not happy with the eminent domain possibility. It's a 10-year contract. I also noticed someplace in that contract, it's still showing our old address at 275 West Main.
So we can fix that on the address. Thank you for pointing that out. As far as the upsizing, that would likely have to do with upsizing of any pipelines or anything of that, because they might need it for fire flows or something of that nature. If there's upsizing that we require, so let me just give you a really good example. A main water line is typically 8 inches. If we tell them we need a 10-inch line, we pay for the difference between the 8 and the 10-inch line because we need it for our master plan capacities. That's very simple. It's in every development agreement. We do that with any kind of upsizing. Roads, water lines, sewer lines, anything of that nature. That's something that we typically agree to, and we have funding for that. Typically, our master plans have some small amount of the funds that we're collected are set aside for pipeline upsizing or something of that nature. Does that help on that one?
Yes, thank you.
And then what was the last question?
Well, I'm just,
The upsizing.
Eminent domain.
Oh, the eminent domain. The eminent domain comes down to you guys. You don't. It says you may. If I remember correctly, it says you may.
right.
It doesn't mean we have to. If it comes down to we need X, Y, and Z through whatever property, and you guys feel like that it's something that you can do. Again, that is in most of our development agreements that we either may or we won't do it. Most of them we say we won't. But in this case, where there's a potential large benefit to the city, we may want to just leave that door open and have that conversation. But it's totally up to you guys. The developer doesn't drive that. If they come to us and say, we need eminent domain, then we bring it to you guys and we go down that road if you guys want to go down that road.
I just don't like the word.
But one thing it does do is it also clarifies that if the city does use eminent domain, it's at the developer's expense.
Right.
That's one reason I think to have it in there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us want to do that.
No.
I've not seen eminent domain in my 17 years, and so the last time I know that the city used eminent domain was some decades ago, and it can be an ugly word. We do a lot of times purchase property with the threat of eminent domain, but that is for tax benefits of the person that's doing it, not because we want to eminent domain it. That actually provides a tax benefit in certain circumstances.
Good to know. Thanks.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, in the case of the I-15 project, there's only one place where that's really pointed out.
Yeah.
And they have already opted, don't do it until we can be put in that position. That way they do get the taxes, they get a better price, they get it moved on.
Good.
And that would not be, in that case, it would not be us using eminent domain
No, it's
or the threat of it. It would be UDOT.
Yeah, that's.
The mayor's talking about the interchange replacement up
Yeah.
here. Yep. Happy to answer any other questions.
Any other business we need? Anything we need to talk about? I did want to bring up, I went up the canyon the other day and, I wasn't going to bring this up in the regular council, but there was a strip of paint off of the door to the toilet up in the parking lot. I didn't dare get out and walk over and walk around it. I just went, somebody's put a stripper on that door. And I just turned it over to the police immediately. Rod sent an investigator up, and they came back and said was a poor paint job. And, you know, I still didn't go up and do the investigation, but I went back up and looked at it, and more paint has come off. An exceptional amount of paint has come off of that door now. The other door is fine, but the one door, it's bad. It's down to the metal. So what we need to do probably is look at getting that thing painted in the spring. I don't want to do a thing when it's this cold, but
Be a good service project.
We'll have Public Works look at that.
we'll want to look at it. We want to have an evaluation, get the right kind of paints on it, and primer apparently. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
anyway, we probably ought to look at the other one too, and then there's not any colder really up there than it is anywhere else. It's just taking a heck of a beating for some reason. But it, rather than being a strip this wide, it's this wide. So anyway, that's it. Any other business? Anything you want to talk about right now? If not, you're gonna have 48 minutes of playtime. Okay, I entertain a motion to adjourn from this meeting.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second?
And seconded. Isn't that funny? Jeff?
Aye.
Art?
Aye.
Lynn?
Aye.
Travis?
Aye.
Okay.